Welcome back to another exciting episode of Podcast where we delve deep into the realm of generative AI and its real world applications. I'm your host, Mansa, and today we got a distinguished guest speaker on board, Sai Nikheleshwar. Sai is a senior operations manager at ADP with extensive experience in engineering, operations strategy, and complex problem solving. Sai, it's a pleasure to have you here. Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, Mansa. First of all, thank you very much to the team of Botcast to give me this opportunity and inviting me to this. To just give an introduction about myself, I'm Sayee Nikheleshwar, based out of Hyderabad, and professionally, I belong to Merchant Navy. I spent 12 and a half years in Merchant Navy, starting as a cadet, followed by growing up the ranks, eventually becoming chief engineer, heading the engineering side of power plant operations and the propulsion machinery related works. So, post that, as a career transition, I had an opportunity to join Indian School of Business, where I finished my MBA, class of 23. And from there, I transitioned and had a corporate opportunity to join ADP. At present, I work with ADP in the function of wage garnishments as a senior operations manager. So this is how my journey has been from last 13 years.
Let's get right to it. Sai, thanks for being with us today and sharing your views. We can't wait to dive into the exciting world of AI and how it's shaping the business landscape. So, my first question to you is as an ex chief engineer in Merchant Navy, you must have witnessed some exciting advancements and integration of AI. Can you shed some light on how you see role of AI in streamlining and improving the maritime industries?
Sure, Mansa. So before we deep dive into the impact of generative AI or a predictive AI in today's maritime industry, I just want to take few minutes in giving you a glimpse of how maritime industry has transformed over decades. Possibly 3, 4 decades back, if you look back to things, it was more of a very reactive and a very breakdown maintenance and operations kind of a way shipping industry used to run. Whenever there used to be a breakdown, people used to clear those things. There used to be a lot of manpower, man hours, capital, everything involved. Once everything was cleared, operations again used to resume. Over decades, when time slowly passed on, it moved out from a reactive way, still in the sense very reactive, but this time on a periodic maintenance rather than a breakdown maintenance. In periodic maintenance, they took insights from the engine manufacturers, study matter experts, and various other people, and they came to a certain kind of a hypothesis with which they started working on maintenance issues and thereby preventing those breakdown kind of incidents. But even then, things have changed, but not to that extent where we could optimize each and every part of operations and the entire activities that were involved in the ecosystem. From last decade, if you see, AI has come into the picture where each and every stream that is there in the shipping industry has started utilizing these insights of artificial intelligence, say, unleashing the creativity, opening new frontiers, and also illuminating the data driven predictions for making sure in making sure that the kind of a possible breakdown that can happen or the insights that we gain from the data or the historic data along with the real time happenings that are there in the markets. By including all these factors, we started developing predictive models which help in optimizing our operations, man hours, time. Eventually everything turns into revenue. Today we are in that phase where we are trying to generate content based on variety of inputs, say whether it is images, sound, animation, models, data inputs, and all these factors amalgamated themselves to form a kind of a generative AI which is coming at a very quick pace, say whether it is related to the port operations, to the traffic management, weather forecasting, safety, security, the ecological, environmental, sustainability related issues, and most importantly, the resilience in the supply chain. So these are some of the things that are happening at a rapid pace in maritime industry.
Thank you, Sai. Moving on to the next question, I'm curious to know from your experience, have you observed any specific AI technologies or tools that have remarkably enhanced the efficiency and accuracy? So, and how did you ensure its ethical usage amid data security concerns?
So, coming to the first question, to give you certain examples, I remember one of the major shipping companies existing in the market with 400 plus vessels are trying to integrate data from all the ships with metrics close to 200 plus, where each and every data is being monitored real time, and the insights from these are generated in the form of images, animation, possibly a 3D model, thereby preventing a kind of breakdown or a possible loss, man hours, and most importantly, optimizing the day-to-day operations, optimizing the manpower, optimizing the time, and most importantly, reflecting all these factors in the form of revenue. And another example, to be very precise, in one of the functions to explain is about a company called Graving, based out of Singapore. It has created an app by name CGPT, SEAGPT. So previously, shipping industry is highly dynamic, where there are multiple stakeholders for each and every operation that happens. So, related to the crew members on board ships, also the port agencies and the maritime regulatory bodies, connecting these three was always, independent manual labor involved in it, where people used to reach out to each and every agency, get the, things done, and reach out through a communication to the other party. And that is how things used to happen, possibly pre-COVID. So during COVID, because of the restrictions and also because of the vacuum that was there in the industry, this generative AI, app started automating the communication process between these three important stakeholders, that are the crew members on board ship, the port agencies, which deal with the regulatory requirements about the documentation, about the cargo operations, about the logistics related activities, and the maritime regulatory bodies who monitor these activities. So all these three elements were put across in one platform, and with the real time insights from these, because of changing requirement, timing, regulations, and possibly due to COVID, which were very highly dynamic, they could integrate all these parts in the form of CGPT, which literally helped us come out of that tough situation in a very very diligent way, and at the same time maintaining the regulatory requirements, and also making sure the end user was not affected. So this is just one example in the space of the interaction between the port authorities, maritime regulations, and crew members. If you look at a big picture, there are vast and rapid improvements that are happening with respect to each and every function, right from safety, security, logistics, vessel traffic management, and weather forecasting. And some are in the approval phase, some are already in the markets. And once it comes significantly, there is going to be a drastic improvement in the way things run. So this is the first part of it. Now, coming to the second part of the question, as to how this ethical management and making sure the compliance requirements are maintained. The entire maritime industry is governed by International Maritime Organization, which is basically the Bible of the entire operations related to shipping that happens across the globe. So the compliance requirements under IMO are looked at very stringently, making sure all the regulatory requirements are being satisfied by each and every stakeholder who comes up with any kind of initiatives, say utilizing generative AI, coming up with predictive AI models and all. So those things which are being used are going through a very stringent regulatory bodies. Also, third party specialists are brought into the market to make sure that we take specialists and guidance from them, such that we get the subject expertise. It is also communicated across the entire stakeholders ecosystem, such that everybody understands what are the intricate things involved with the regulatory bodies and as well as the compliance issues related to it. So this is a 5-year approvals that will be given to these authorities. And post that, on an annual basis, there are audits, there are inspections, and of course the vetting process that happens through authorized regulatory bodies like the port state controls, coastal state controls, and of course certain regulatory bodies. Say for in United States it is US Coast Guard, in India it is called as the MMD, in Australia it is called as the AMSA. So all these people together, they form a chain of regulatory body which is all being governed by IMO. They make sure that all these policies are ethically utilized, there is transparency involved in each and every process, and under any circumstances, tweaking of these guidelines and regulatory requirements and instructions are not being made in such a way that it will benefit only one of the stakeholders for his advantage. So they make sure the compliance requirements are being maintained, not just during approvals, but on a time to time basis. And it is regularly vetted by various authorities who are in the system. And on the other end, there are also these compliance requirements related to standardization like the ISO 9000 and 14000, who are throwing strong light on these and making sure in the entire ecosystem, the ethical practices and transparency is stringently followed.
That's incredibly efficient, Sai. But I'm eager to hear some success stories or examples where the integration of AI has significantly improved the shipping industry. Would you mind sharing some of your, experiences with our listeners?
Sure, definitely. So, first of all, today the generative AI market and the developments that are happening are amounting to close to a 700 million USD kind of a market existing. And with a CAGR of close to 45%, it is growing in the next decade, expected to reach close to 18,000 million USD kind of market. And this is all the kind of investment that maritime research is going on related to generative AI in various operations. These various operations specifically include vessel traffic management. This is important because time of arrival to a port and time of exit to a port is all time bound, and most importantly is all impacting the revenue of operations. It is not just impacting revenue of an individual ship or an owner, but it is impacting multiple ship owners because they are all waiting to connect, and waiting anywhere is wastage of time. And at the same time, we need to optimize their operations to reach the point B. So the real-time insights at each and every point will help them optimize their operations and at the same time also reduce the emissions wherever it is required. So that is the first point. Second important thing is related to logistics. The logistics again here are generally into three divisions. That is the first mile, the mid mile, and the last mile operations. So shipping generally comes in the mid mile, and the last mile is to reach the final end user, and the first mile is reaching the ship. This is how we can divide it. But in each and every point, there is a lot of fuel consumption that is happening because of operations, and that is where we want optimized logistical operations, where we need insights, statistical patterns, the trends that are happening. And whenever you program it, the algorithm that is being designed, networks, helps in a definite pattern, which helps in machine learning and eventually in generating in a generative AI model that helps in variety of inputs, say images, sounds, animation, possibly a 3D model or any kind of data output. This is all generated today with the help of it. In addition to that, things like weather forecasting, very important because it helps in navigating the ship in the right way to get real-time insights about the weather that is across the globe, and help in proper routing, thereby optimizing again fuel consumption, optimizing the time when we reach. That is impacting again emissions. So this is all a closed loop that is totally connected in the ecosystem, and eventually building up a very strong supply chain resilience. So this is how each and every element is interconnected, and when they all join the ecosystem, it is all ending up in the form of gaining.
Thank you, Sai. And most importantly, I think this is our last question for the podcast today. But I would like to understand with your transition from maritime industry to human capital management, How do you view the evolving AI landscape in your current industry? Is my first question. And second is, what AI advancements do you anticipate, and how is your global organization preparing to embrace these advancements?
In a very generic way, the generative AI or a predictive AI that is existing today in market is disrupting each and every industry. You take any industry that is there today. Just to give you an example, I remember previously, if we want to travel to another country, possibly we used to sit on the system, start looking into various apps, design things, and spend a lot of time in optimizing what we want to do. But today, things are so easy that people are using this generative pre-trained transformers, or possibly DALI or a BARD to, you give your inputs, you get the designated way you want to plan your holiday with all the insights. So this is just an example how disruptive the way a generative AI is working. So going deep into it, say whether it is human capital management or any other industry, the generative AI generally works with a lot of historical data that is being taken, the trends, the statistical way in which the algorithm can be processed with a lot of neural networks. So it is all, funneling down to a proper machine learning algorithm that is eventually building up in the form of an artificial intelligence. And this, when unleashes creativity and opens new frontiers, it becomes what we call a generative AI. And in the other way, when it can help us in predicting or taking decisions with a data driven predictions, it is called a predictive AI. So what is actually doing is all the partners in the ecosystem, say the end users, employers, employees, agencies, the judiciary, the regulatory bodies, governments, the financial institutions, each and every partner who is involved in the entire industry are taking insights with these kind of inputs from the data, and they are because of this models, they are generating those insights which are very very useful in helping the end user. And in helping the end user, it is also generating revenue. This is the principle that is being followed, say whether it is human capital management or maybe an automobile industry for autonomous operations, possibly a drone driven testing phase of home delivery cargo, anything, you take anything. This is what is the crux of utilizing the generative AI or a predictive models to benefit the end user. It is disrupting, and it has been there for a long time now, and it'll only eventually become better and better, and help and our focus will always be to help the end user in a much better way. And in that process will be a revenue generation for us. That is the simple policy with which we work.
Absolutely, I resonate with you completely. And thank you for joining us on this exciting episode of Botcast. A big thank you to our guest speaker, Sayee Nikheleshwar, for sharing his expertise and experiences of AI's influence in the maritime industry and its potential in human capital management domain. So, Zai, it's been a pleasure having you here. Do you have any parting words to our listeners?
Perfect. First of all, it's a pleasure, joining this podcast. Thanks to, to the entire team of yours. And parting words, nothing much. I think it's very important for every individual who is associated in today's world to upskill ourselves with the latest happenings, say whether it is news broadcasting, or possibly a travel agency, or a cargo company, or a human capital management company, or a shipping industry, or a logistics firms. Each and every element in today's industry is rapidly changing, and it is very important for an individual or a company to upskill themselves and be in line with the happenings in this arena, specifically related to generative AI, to keep ourselves competitive in the markets. And the final goal of everyone is to help the end user. Yeah.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of podcast. If you found the insights shared today valuable, don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest advancements on generative AI and its real world applications. Thank you all to our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, this is Mansa signing off. See you soon on the next episode of Podcast.